Hey guys, in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about how we perceive photography. So I'm Daniel Norton, photographer here in New York. I make videos like this one. This is going to be about philosophy, about business, about technique, about gear sometimes. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, go ahead and subscribe. So as of the recording of this, there's terrible fires on the west coast of the United States, and I've got some friends over there, and I don't know, Wednesday, I think it was, when it got in fact, it was on the news, all over the place. The skies basically turned this like crazy orange color from all the particulate matter in the air and everything else. And, my friend was there and he took some shots on his phone. He sent it to me and to our chat group that we had. And, one of the people there was like, oh, it looks like an Instagram filter. And we all laughed or whatever. And then this morning, um, somebody posted on Facebook, on a photographer who I'm friends with, and they had shot some end of the day shot here in New York, and they clearly applied some kind of filters to it. I mean, they didn't say that, but it looked that way, and it looked almost the same. And it made me really think about the idea that photography has changed. Now, I'm not saying that people did not manipulate photos from the very beginning, because they did, of course. But there was this perception that a photograph was truth. Whether or not that was accurate, I mean, whatever. That's a whole other debate. And I feel like, if anything, that has come exactly the opposite full circle. Like, I can't tell you the number of times when people have just assumed things were retouched or changed or photoshopped or whatever you want to call it, when they were not. They were literally what was there. The assumption is now, where the assumption used to be what was in the photo was captured, was what was there, and it was real on some level. The exact opposite seems to be the case now, and I think it's fascinating. I think it's really, really interesting. There's this kind of classic story. I probably should have looked it up, but you can probably Google it. Where these two young girls, used. I mean, I'm not sure when it was. Maybe in the 20s, maybe a little before that. They took like cutouts, paper. I don't know if they drew them or they took them out of a book or whatever. Like cutouts of fairies, and they kind of put them in the foreground of the image, and then made a photo of them with them. And people actually believed, some people anyways, that these were actual photos of fairies. I mean, I'm sure not everybody believed it, because again, there's that gut reaction back then that if it was in the photo, it must be real. How couldn't it be real? And yeah, if anybody knows what I'm talking about, go ahead and for the name of the girls, whatever. But it just is fascinating to me, and I just thought it was super interesting. I mean, I don't know that this is going to be a long video, but the idea that one of the powers, we'll say, that we used to have as photographers was to be able to present what would be perceived as truth. Some people abuse that, of course, but the reality of it is that it gave a certain prestige to the craft. That you were creating something that that was real, that was in front of you, that you were. It wasn't like, obviously, if you're drawing something or painting it, you can create anything, right? Oftentimes when people refer to like various painters and the lighting, I mean, yeah, they were looking at light that was there, but they were also manipulating it with their paint, kind of like the way that people do that in Photoshop now, and they add light and stuff. And one of the things is that when you do that kind of thing, in a sense, you take away some of the power of the photography, right? The power that it is documenting what's there, especially if you are, not, let's say, honest. I mean, honest maybe is too strong a word about it. Like I see plenty of people who are like, let's say, teaching lighting, and they make a photo and it jumps over to the finished image that's clearly been retouched, clearly been lighting had been added in Photoshop, and it's like, well, how? That's not what you did, you know. And there's something to be learned about how to add all that extra cool contrast and dodging and burning and all that other stuff. But the reality is that when you present it as, this is the light that I used, and it's not that, it's interesting. It creates a very very interesting spot, and I think that as photographers, the serious photographers, anyways, we have to be aware that this is going on and be sure that I mean, I think, and again, this is philosophy, be sure that we're not crossing that line, you know, because once we start to create this idea, which is already rolling, unfortunately, that photography is not real, then when you see these pictures, which should shock the hell out of people, of these skies that are just like impenetrable with dust and color, and just it looks like just nightmarish in a sense. Um, you shouldn't just 3 photos down on Instagram you see the same thing on a beach in Miami because somebody threw all kinds of filters on it, and think, oh well, whatever, it's nothing, right? It stops the impact that photo would have, right? The photo has impact because it's real. It's like, whoa. Whereas when every photo is manipulated, then nobody knows what's real and what's not. So I just think it's super interesting. I mean, I'm not saying people should manipulate photos. Clearly, that's a thing that people do. But I think there is that point where we should be honest with our viewer as much as possible, as to the fact that it's manipulated, so that people can understand when the truth is out there. I feel like I was about to do an X-Files thing, where the truth of the matter is there, right? I mean, I'm not a photojournalist by any stretch. I feel like these are the areas where they're probably affected by this a lot. The fact that people can manipulate images so readily. Like, it's not that they couldn't do it before, but it's so easy to do now that, I mean, you literally can take your phone, and there's lots of programs, and like, be shooting a photo, and it will add things to the photo while you're shooting it, like live, like in video as well. It's nuts, right? So, I mean, the technology is amazing and cool and fun to play with. But where does that leave us? Like, where does it leave the truth of the photography? Like, where are we when nobody believes what they see anymore? And I'm not sure I know the answer to that. I think it's interesting. And I would love to know what you guys think about that. Do you think that people don't trust photographers, not photographers, but photography in general anymore, and that they just assume everything's retouched? Because that seems to be the feeling that I get. I mean, the most classic thing was when I was doing a live stream once, and somebody asked, which I took as a huge compliment, thank you, what program is he using that's automatically retouching the photo as soon as he takes it? Because they couldn't believe that the picture looked the way it did with the way I was lighting it, because they didn't understand lighting, of course, right? And that's interesting to me, right? It's interesting that they didn't just think, wow, that's a really good technique. It's like, it must be retouched because it's beyond what I understand. So I'm curious what you guys think about that. Let me know below, and we'll get back. Let me know what you guys want to see. I mean, I'll throw some more of these philosophy videos out as I think of them, of course. But I'm kind of working through some of these commercial ideas and art ideas and retail photographer ideas that we've talked about. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe, guys, and I'll see you next time.